Man, there are a lot of podcasts out there.
Definitely. I mean, there's 3 million shows, 50 million episodes, and more every day.
I mean, who has the time to figure out which ones are the best podcasts?
We do. That's who. What's up, guys? I am Alicia Renee.
And I'm Dax Holt.
And we are your host of Pod Sauce, a podcast discovery show.
Look at us as your podcast concierge.
We do all the work for you. We listen to the shows, review them,
pick the best episodes, and interview the hosts.
Pod Sauce. Let us help you find your next binge. Tell them where to go, Dax.
Go to podsauce.com.
From C13 Features, a new kind of listening experience.
He's back!
Help me!
Get out of there.
It's here.
No, don't let them in.
You can experience Treat, a podcast movie starring Kiernan Shipka, for free on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Grab some popcorn and enjoy the show.
Sometimes I feel badly for those people who wake up with the radio on their alarm clocks. Do people still do that, or is that super old school? Does anyone do that anymore? James is making this face at me as if he has no idea what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, but I've never done that in at least my lifetime, I don't think.
Yeah, it's not something that I do normally, but if you stay in a hotel, have you ever been asleep in the middle of the night in a hotel and all of a sudden the radio starts blaring off the alarm clock that's on the nightstand because someone set it for super early in the morning, probably to catch an early flight, and they just left the alarm on, so it's perpetual, and every single morning the radio starts blaring at that moment. It's like someone's screaming at you. So yeah, it's not the case on my alarm clock. In fact, I have a digital clock in my bedroom just so that when I wake up in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, I can see what time it is. But my alarm is on my phone, and my body is conditioned to hear that particular ringtone, that chime. But I'm sure there are people out there. There has to be at least one person listening who has the radio on their alarm clock, and that's what wakes them up. And then I think, what if they hear our very loud music and my somewhat obnoxious voice? I mean, that's got to be jarring. But I guess if it helps you wake up, if it's like a cold shower, you know, some people wake up and take cold showers.
Ugh.
I don't, but I actually have friends who every single morning they get into a cold shower because that's what wakes them up.
That sounds like the worst way to start my day I could possibly imagine.
Not to mention my neighbors would call the cops because I would be screaming bloody murder if I got into a cold shower. I'd rather go without showering, if you must know. So if there's a smell someday, it's because I didn't have any cold or didn't have any hot water in my house. Yeah, no way. I'd rather just rough it for a few days or go with a cold shower.
Or like a sponge bath with like some hot water from the, I don't know, heat it up on the stove. I don't know.
You say that until you go to Africa, where you're camping in the bush for a week and the only thing that you have is a sponge bath. Yeah, it's not as much fun as you think.
I've actually been there. Hurricane Sandy, they knocked out my power for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And we didn't have hot water.
You guys didn't go anywhere. You stayed home?
Well, because they told us that it was going to come back, and then we had like a snowstorm, which knocked it out again. And then right when we decided, like, all right, we're going to get a generator, all right, we're going to go somewhere, it came back, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, we had to rough that for a good bit there.
The longest I've ever been in a place, it was actually my condo in Connecticut when I worked at my previous network, without power, 9 days. 9 days. But I had a wood stove, and I could go to work where I would charge my phone and I would use the computer and all that jazz. But yeah, it was inside the house at night. It got down to 42 degrees, especially when I was done using the wood stove. And I remember there were people. This is, again, it was an ice storm that hit Connecticut really hard and hit my town worse than any other town. So I imagine it was similar after Superstorm Sandy. But I remember hearing stories of people bringing their charcoal grills or their gas grills into their homes to light them and warm the house. And then, of course, they would die because you can't do that because the fumes. But yeah, just people get desperate.
No, it's scary. It's a dangerous situation where you get no heat. I mean,
it is. It is dangerous. And so in my case, I had a place where I could go to shower and to charge my phone and stuff. But I know that people do get really crazy about it. But whatever. I'd rather go without a shower. The longest I've ever been, again, is when I was in Africa and we were camping in the bush and there was no running water anywhere. There was no electricity after like noon when it would all be burnt out. But I think we went 5 days without without showering. So the sponge bath was kind of crazy. I was at least able to wash my hair, but you don't get clean. I mean, you're in the bush, for heaven's sakes. You don't get clean. So yeah, that was probably the longest I ever went. And after a while, you're just perpetually itchy.
Yeah, I would imagine.
That's what happens. And on that note, can't be great to wake up to that either. So get in your cold shower, people. Get in your cold shower. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence here on CBS Sports Radio. We're live from the Rocket Mortgage Studios. When you need cash out of your home and a simple way to get it, Rocket can. There was this thought that I had, and I grew up in New England, so I can relate to Boston area sports fans and New England sports fans, of course. There was a thought that I had that maybe, because I'm always looking for ties and segues between the various stories or topics that we do, maybe I could start out this hour by saying, ooh, it was a rough night for Boston area sports fans. And I thought, that's mean. It'll sound like I'm targeting them specifically, which of course I'm not doing. Plus, it was the first game of the Celtics season, so there's no need to freak out or be all panicky. I will say about baseball, both the ALCS, which wrapped up its Boston stint last night, and the NLCS, that whatever the expectations were for the Astros and the Braves, they were executed, I think, even beyond expectation. They were executed to perfection. It didn't look the same for either the Astros or the Braves, and for different reasons. They both had to show up in a way that they had to face hostile crowds, but also defend their turf, if that makes sense. So they're not on their own fields at their own stadiums, but they had a position that they had to defend. And I'll explain what I mean. With the Astros, they got what they wanted. In game number 4, they had a late rally, 9th inning, 7 runs. They were able to tame the Boston Bats with a long list of bullpen guys. This was not a quality start. It was the opposite of a quality start with Zach Greinke in game number 4. But the Astros hung in there, and their bullpen did a masterful job. And in the end, they had the 7 runs in the 9th inning, and they were able to get that series back to even, despite all the issues with their starting pitchers, and know that they were going home. Regardless of what happened in game number 5, they knew they were going home. But if you're the Astros, of course you'd rather win game 5. 70% of the time in a tie postseason series, the winner of game 5 goes on to advance. In this case, it's the World Series that's waiting. So the Astros could have come off that game 4 in which they used their entire bullpen and had all kinds of pitching struggles in game 5. Very quick turnaround. They knew they were facing Chris Sale. They were relying on Framber Valdez. And in the Astros case, they doubled down. Not only did they win that game 4, force the series back to Minute Maid Park, but they enhanced their position. Now it's even stronger. And so I was impressed that there was no letdown. And beyond all of that, the fact that Valdez pitched into the 8th inning, the fact that a starting pitcher goes 8 innings and doesn't even throw 100 pitches, is that old school now? Because it seems almost completely foreign in October.
Here's the 1-2. Got him, strike 3. That was the curveball again. Vasquez lunges at it, and that's the 4th strikeout of the game for Valdez, and it's been 9 up, 9 down so far.
The 2-strike pitch. And that's lifted in the air to left. It backs up Brantley onto the track in front of the monster, makes the catch a step shy of that wall. And it's a 1-2-3 inning for Framber Valdez. 8 innings of 1-run ball for the Astros lefty.
He was throwing strikes. He had a good tempo going. He threw, he didn't mess around, forcing that breaking ball like he had the last couple starts and then getting behind. And, he was attacking the strike zone.
This is a 1-2 punch here. First of all, a starter goes 8 innings, and he was great. He only allows 3 hits to the Red Sox. We'll get to the silent Red Sox bats coming up. But he also protects the bullpen. I don't know what moves Dusty Baker might have made, but I'm certain that part of Valdez staying in through the 8th inning, A, he was locked in. He was in his zone. But B, they didn't have to rely on the bullpen after fewer than 24 hours of what they were forced to do in game number 4 when Zach Greinke only lasted 4 outs. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. So that was the first part of the punch. The second part of the punch was the offense picking up right where it left off from the 9th inning of game number 4.
3 infielders in a triangle right side. Hernandez in center, shaded maybe a step or two toward the pull side. First pitch. And Alvarez hits it well and hits it deep to left field. And you can kiss that one goodbye. Into the monster seats for Jordan. And it's 1-0 Astros. Sale, the kick and the pitch. And Alvarez ropes one down a left field line, hooking and fair. Bounces into the corner. Altuve scores. Brantley around third. He scores. Alvarez 3 for 3. He just drove in 2 with a double. And the Astros lead it 3-0. Perez, the kick and the pitch. And Yuli smacks it up the middle and through for a base hit. That'll score Bregman. Correa right behind him, and he will score as well. A 2-run single by Yuli. He's driven in 3 tonight, and the Astros lead is 9-1.
1-2 punch. Brilliant pitching from Valdez. Everything they needed from their cleanup hitter, Alvarez. 3 for 5, 3 RBI. And I think it's worth noting again, this guy, and he's becoming one of their most reliable, right? I mean, this is a guy who doesn't have as much experience as the others. So a Bregman, an Altuve, a Correa. But man, does he come through in some huge situations. And so Dusty Baker got the perfect formula, and the plans were executed beyond expectation. Now, as for the Red Sox, not the first time, not even the first time recently they've been in a situation like this, but the wild swing, I mean, it's stunning. I know I used that about what happened late in the game on Tuesday night in the 9th inning, but to go from a record number of grand slams in a series, and that record will stand regardless of what happens, but 3 grand slams and runs to spare, offense for days in games 2 and 3, to feel like they have almost found the Midas touch, if you will. I know that's an old school reference, but everything they touch turned to gold with their bats. And now in back-to-back games, they've essentially been held to 3 hits each. The total is 8 hits, but the 9th inning of game number 4, it was essentially a moot point. The 2 hits, great, they got 2 hits, but it was over by then. So 3 hits in each of these last 2 games. The team has got to stay confident. They have no choice. They're going back to Houston, where they did win game number 2. And, of course, it's not foreign to them to have their backs against the wall. But still, a wild swing in the span of, 48 hours?
Nobody. I don't think anyone in here either, ever thought we were going to be here. So, I mean, to that, we know what we're capable of. And I think no one's not believing in themselves or not believing in our team. The situation is simple, We're down 3-2. We got to go to Minute Maid now, and we got to go over there and play good ball. But that being said, I'm not doubting our offense. You've seen what we've been able to do.
You take it one day at a time, of course, cliche-wise. We got to win the next game. And it's not the first time we've been in this situation that it's a must-win. We did it in 162. We did it in a wild card game. Instead of see that there's two games, let's take care of game 1. And, we've done it before.
You got to get the job done. You know what I mean? You can feel confident all you want to with those guys over there, taking the last breath and the final life out of anything is, it's a tough rogues. They're going to fight you to the end. So it's just I feel good. But I don't feel great.
Dusty Baker is the best. Both he and Alex Cora, these guys play hard for these managers. They're the perfect fit for the 2 separate clubhouses. And Alex Cora mentions cliche-wise, which is funny. I didn't hear that the first time. But he's right. You think back to game 162 against the Nationals. Remember, they had just gotten swept by the Yankees at Fenway Park the weekend before and were on the brink of losing to maybe the Seattle Mariners or the Blue Jays in that race for the second wild card. They're down 5-1 late in their last game against the Nationals, and they rally for not just the tie, but the victory. I can't remember if it went to extras or not, or if it was 9th or 10th inning, but regardless, they've pulled victory from the jaws of defeat before. So this is not a situation that's foreign to them. But certainly you'd rather be the Astros. And so I'm impressed with the way Houston doubled down, because it wasn't, hey, here's everything we got at the end of game number 4 just to get back to even. No, it was, look, We've got more for you, and Valdez was the key. Robert Ford and Steve Sparks on the Astros radio network, and then you hear J.D. Martinez, very confident in the offense still, as well as Alex Cora and Dusty Baker. And because I mentioned it, I'll go ahead and piggyback on that, and then we'll get to the NLCS in our next segment. But it was the opener for both the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden, which was rocking on Wednesday night.
Inbound to Tatum. Tatum falls down. Floats it ahead to Schroeder. Schroeder for Smart. He's got to look at the buzzer. Got it! Marcus Smart drills a three, and the Celtics have forced overtime on opening night.
Oh, heartbeat still. Give me my banana sandwich now. They always say Smart can't shoot, but damn it, when you need it, he's on point.
Robinson up top. Minute remaining. Give to Rose. Finds Fournier. He's open. Fake the three. Now one from straight on. Knocks it down. Got his man in the air. And Fournier, huge in his Knicks debut. The Knicks leading 136-134. 32 for Fournier. 10 to shoot. 28 to go. Knicks by 2. Second overtime. Rose. 5 to shoot. The drive. The runner. It's good. Off glass. Knicks by 4 with 22.2 left. Timeout, Boston. Rose to the rescue.
This was a pretty incredible mood swing as well. And I love what we heard in Madison Square Garden because it's opening night and the fans are so fired up. And the Celtics struggled in the third quarter. That was kind of when the game turned. Once the Knicks put together their run, and they'd been trailing by double figures, but once they put together their run, it was back and forth the rest of the way into double overtime. Sean Grandy on the Celtics radio network, Ed Cohen on Knicks radio. And yeah, it's kind of fun. I know the Knicks made the playoffs last year. They were the 4 seed, and they were right there about 500. So, a little bit better, but the Eastern Conference fairly mediocre, a lot of parity. But to start in this way, especially when people pointed to the Knicks offseason and didn't feel like they made any major splashes, right? So they got a couple of free agents, a couple of names, but no big, huge, high-profile free agent that would fit the mystique of Madison Square Garden. But those fans were there, and it sounds like they are ready for this team to build on 2021.
I knew the intensity level of a game is far different than a preseason game. So we had to let them work through that. And then we're still, guys are finding their way. I thought Evan hit some huge shots. I thought Julius was Julius. The good thing is at the end of the day, we got the win. So we know we got a lot of work to do.
It was really fun. The Garden was crazy. It's electric. Obviously the hype, from Kemba and Evan coming, man, it was a great game, hard fought, and we definitely tip our hats to them. We definitely trusted each other, and we did a great job. So it's just the start of something special, and hopefully we could build on this.
So you hear both Tom Thibodeau as well as R.J. Barrett, who had 19 points, 5 rebounds. I would expect that young guys like Barrett and Obi Toppin will be better this year. I still love the fact that Derrick Rose and Thibodeau kind of formed the heart of that team, and that Derrick Rose knows Thibodeau and also knows exactly the culture that they're building. Evan Fournier had the go-ahead 3 in double overtime, so a couple of big shots for him. Julius Randle, an all-star last year with 35 points. So no, not some crazy splashes in free agency where it seemed like other teams were, trading for Russell Westbrook and yada, yada, yada. But the Knicks, they have a formula. Thibodeau has a formula, and he finds the guys that fit that formula. And I love scrappy. I love scrappiness and grittiness, and sometimes it's about tenacity more than it's about talent. I know it's just game 1, but it was kind of cool to see this first one go into double OT. Also, Jaylen Brown. Whoa, did he fight through a lot. He has a career high 46 points for the Celtics, and he played 46 minutes after the last 10 days in quarantine. So he has an inhaler, and he's trying to regain his breath. For those of you who had COVID or even pneumonia, I've had walking pneumonia before, and it was a month before I could run again because of the lung capacity that's reduced. He has an inhaler, and he's out there sucking wind, of course. He says his breathing was irregular. And toward the end, this is a little scary, I could feel my heart beating through my chest. But he gave it everything he had out there on the court. So very early, no need to talk about anyone winning a title or missing the playoffs after game number 1, but it was pretty exciting at the Garden. And obviously a busy sports night for Boston area fans. So what happened in the NLDS? Well, as I was saying about the Astros and the way they doubled down and improved their position, the response from the Braves, perfect in Los Angeles. We'll get to that coming up. On Twitter, A-Law Radio, also on our Facebook page, After Hours with Amy Lawrence. We're so glad to have you on a Thursday morning. What? It's After Hours on CBS Sports Radio.
You are listening to the After Hours podcast.
Scoreless game here at the top of the second. Eddie smacks one to deep left. This will send back Taylor with urgency. He's back to the wall. That's out of the ballpark. Eddie Rosario drops the hammer on that pitch. And it's 1-0 Braves. 1-1 pitch. Rosario hits one well to deep right field. Back at the wall. That one is gone. Rosario knocked the living daylights out of it. Over the right field wall. And it's a 9-2 Braves lead in the ninth.
This is After Hours with Amy Lawrence.
The Atlanta Braves got punched in the gut a little bit in game number 3 in Los Angeles, NLCS against the Dodgers. And maybe there are a few of those demons kind of rearing their ugly heads, the ghosts of the past, if we're going to use a Halloween reference. Actually, I guess that'd be more like Christmas and Christmas Eve, the ghosts of the past. But the Braves responded in a way that, if you're a fan, maybe you've come to expect, because how often did the Braves have to absorb another disappointment and figure out a way to move forward and get it done? And against the Dodgers, of course, there's history, but Eddie Rosario doesn't have that history, and he doesn't care. 2 more home runs for Rosario, a 4-hit game. He is the only baseball player ever to have a pair of 4-hit performances in the championship series. And so pretty amazing to see what he's done, not to mention every single move that Brian Snitker made with his bullpen worked out exceptionally well. Ben Ingram on the Braves radio network. And so here are the Braves, again, up 3-1, just like they were last fall. Of course, that was neutral territory this series. If they don't close it out in Game 5 tonight in Los Angeles, we'll head back to Truist Park. I'm terrible at keeping up with all the names. In Atlanta. I should just say in Atlanta. And so there are 2 names and potentially 2 stat lines that you need to know. I just gave you Rosario. He was so close to hitting for the cycle, but also Drew Smyly. And so Smyly, who is the second guy on the mound for the Braves, goes 3 1/3 for a couple of runs that he gives up on 2 hits and 2 strikeouts. So you have, again, like the Astros, the 1-2 punch of the pitching, even though it wasn't a long start like Valdez, but also the hitting. And it gave that bullpen some breathing room and some run support early. And the Dodgers, like we saw twice in the series against the Giants, where they just don't score at all. They're feast or famine. Their bats are either all in or it's nothing. Get this, Dave Roberts, top 5 hitters in Game 4, 0 for 17. And they've lost Justin Turner, who was screaming, actually, was running the base paths. I think it was a double play in the 7th. And he tweaked his hamstring or tore a hamstring or clearly was in some pain, and he was screaming as he was heading up the baseline. So in the 7th, and they've said he is done for the season. So that precipitates a lot of changes now for Dave Roberts, and here they are once again on the brink.
It's going to look different than tonight. Obviously, Justin will be out. They're going to throw Fried. So have Cody out there in center field. And Pujols will be in there, so that in itself will look a little different. As far as construction, I'm going to still think through that. I expect our guys to think about tomorrow, and tomorrow only, Alden. Looking at how we're going to be able to prevent runs tomorrow, and it's going to be a bullpen game. I feel very confident, and now it's, on the other side is how we're going to attack Fried, who's throwing the baseball well, and he's their ace.
Can the Braves use that killer instinct and close this out? It's not the exact same group that was in this scenario last year where they were down 0-2. I'm sorry, up 0-2 and then up 3-1. And they ended up seeing the Dodgers win 3 games in a row. What I would say is that the Dodgers rarely lose back-to-back games at home. They, in fact, until last night had won 18 of 19 at Dodger Stadium. So they're a tough out at home, in addition to just being a tough out anyway. But yeah, the crazy swings with their offense, also something that's kind of befuddling. And so as you hear Dave Roberts say, it will be a bullpen start. Meanwhile, it's Max Fried for Atlanta. But Brian Snitker went with, I think it was 7 different pitching changes last night, and Smiley ended up with the 3 1/3 innings in the middle, but couldn't have worked out any better for Brian.
What Drew did was awesome, just stretching like he did. I really honestly didn't expect him to stay in that game that long, but I mean, he was throwing good, the situations were right, I mean, his stuff was crisp.
This team has been completely different from the last 2.5 months. We've been playing 630, 640 win percentage baseball, so this isn't anything new to us. We've been a really good team for a really long time, so we've just been playing really good baseball lately.
The voice of Freddie Freeman, reigning NL MVP. This isn't anything new to us. And so, again, if you've been following the Braves, you know they've been in this mode with this urgency for 2.5 months of trying to get back to even. And then, of course, on top of the NL East. So pretty impressive what they've done. But from the Astros, from the Braves, I couldn't have been more impressed with what they put out there on the field. And both of them in hostile territories, but both of them strengthening their position on Wednesday night. So now we've got a travel day for the ALCS. So you don't have Astros and Red Sox tonight. They will not get back on the field until Friday night. So there's your Friday night date night. If you're a baseball fan, the Red Sox at the Astros. And then tonight you've got the Braves and the Dodgers again in LA. Dave Roberts has to finagle his lineup as well as his bullpen. We'll see how that works out. But that first pitch is 5:08 Pacific time, 8:08 Atlanta time. I was going to mention I got this tweet from a fan who was at the game in Boston. Let's see, I think she said Monday, but I'm going to read it here because it made me laugh. Angie says, seriously, what the heck happened? I was at Fenway on Monday and it was electric. Those bats better wake up. So yeah, I mean, we've seen pretty much everything you could possibly see in these 2 championship series. Maybe it will help with the Red Sox having their backs against the wall and have to be on the road in Houston. We know that's where they had the 2 grand slams and the 1 game was that Saturday. All my days are blending together now, but we're getting close. We got 2 teams on the brink and could very well have a World Series matchup within 48 hours, actually under 48 hours. Okay, on Twitter, A-Law Radio, on our Facebook page too. We're glad to have you with us after hours on CBS Sports Radio.
You are listening to the After Hours Podcast.
Mahomes fires for the end zone, caught, touchdown, Kansas City. Murray back to throw, and it is it caught? Is it caught? Oh my goodness, it's caught. DeAndre Hopkins caught it.
He's got a man wide open, John Brown, he makes the catch. Touchdown, Buffalo! John Brown from Josh Allen.
Lamar Jackson in the shotgun. Lob to the 5. It is caught. Touchdown, Willie Snead. Play fake by Russ. Throws deep. Man wide open. It's Lockett. He's in. Touchdown, Seahawks. Tannehill rolling, throwing. Touchdown, Titans.
Burrow back to pass. Throws into the end zone.
Yeah.
It's intended for Tyler Boyd. Touchdown. Bengals.
It's time for QB News on After Hours.
We're on the cusp of week 7. How? I have no idea. I can't believe that Thursday is October 21st. And I don't know what to do with that. In about 2 months, many of us will be on Christmas vacation. It'll be Christmas week, for heaven's sakes. You better start shopping now, though, if you want to mail anything. I am way behind, and I'm certain my mom's birthday gift is not going to get there in time. That's what the lady at the post office told me yesterday. We're running a delay. Oh, Are you? It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence and some QB news to whet your appetite for week number 7, or maybe not. No Baker Mayfield against the Denver Broncos to kick off on Thursday Night Football. Instead, it's Case Keenum making his first start of the year on a short work week.
I'm excited. What better chance to take advantage of an opportunity than on Thursday Night Football. I know these opportunities don't come around very often to be a starting quarterback in this league, only 32, per week. So I'm ready to take advantage of it. It's always a great challenge. I mean, and that's what this league is about. Nobody's at 100%. After week 1, nobody's playing at 100%. That's the way it goes, and that's the hard truth. That's why it's a grown man's league. That's why guys who aren't physically tough and mentally tough don't make it very long, because you've got to be both of those things in order to continue to have success in this league. You can flash in the pan, but if you want to continue to have success, you got to be tough. And we had a tough team from top to bottom, tough head coach, and we're raring to go.
The problem is not just that Baker Mayfield isn't healthy, and they hope he'll be back for their next game after this against Pittsburgh, by the way, which is week number 8. But the problem is that they also don't have either one of their top running backs in Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt, both dealing with calf injuries. There's probably no Odell Beckham Jr. If he's out there, he's not 100%. They're still missing 2 of their tackles from the offensive line. The defense is banged up as well. And then you throw Case Keenum out there. Now, he's a veteran, so it's a little bit like the Seattle situation with Geno Smith coming in and not a rookie, not a baby who's got no starting experience. But still, it's Case Keenum. And while the Broncos are not a great team, and they've lost 3 in a row, Von Miller may be Case Keenum's worst nightmare because he is on some kind of a rampage, he says.
The pressure's on me to play well. I will play well. I don't know who the tackle is and I'm going against, but I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him, and the other guy, too, on the other side, and I'm going to play extremely well, and I'm going to make plays for my team. And, I'm going to set us up to win this game for sure.
Just what every quarterback wants to hear. I'm going to kill my tackle, whoever it is that I matched up. Oh, dear. That's your Thursday Night Football matchup to watch. Now, we think Teddy Bridgewater will be out there on the field, though that's not been confirmed yet because, of course, he's dealing with concussion protocol. But Bridgewater knows there's a lot of pressure on the team because they do have a 3-game losing skid.
At the end of the day, we're all human, and sometimes the flesh is weak. But that's where we come together as leaders on this team and as guys who have experience in this league, who've been a part of win streaks, losing streaks. You all come together and you just make sure you realize that the most important thing is just the common goal of this team, and that's to win.
I'll be the first one to say I did not expect that both the Broncos and the Browns would be at 3-3 after the first 6 weeks, but that's where they are, both teams desperate for a win. In the AFC North, the Browns are looking up at the Bengals and Ravens, who clash this weekend. Ooh, one of the high-profile, intriguing matchups of week number 7. By the way, Zach Taylor says Joe Burrow is still not allowed to talk after that throat contusion he got a couple weeks ago.
The doctors just ask him to tone it down a little bit to get ready for the game. Another road game, it'll be loud, so that's what we're doing. His status is he'll play on Sunday. He'll play on Sunday.
So he's going to play, but they may still be dealing more with a silent snap count, but that's typical for when you would go on the road, especially if you're talking about a divisional battle in the AFC North. So between the Ravens and Bengals, 9-3 record. This is amazing. I'm excited for this game. Supremacy in the North, at least at this point in the season, but Joe Burrow's not allowed to talk. I went through that for 2 weeks when the doctor told me I had to. This is like 20 years ago. You're going to have permanent damage if you don't stop talking. So I did. For 2 weeks, I didn't do anything except for whisper. As you can imagine, it was torture. It was torture. I mean, now I might take the vacation, but back then it was scary. As for the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh, he chuckles at the idea that Lamar just keeps making people look silly with what he does on the football field.
Just when we think we've seen it all, we see something different. I think Lamar's handled it great, and our offensive line has handled it great, and our coaches have handled it great. But it doesn't mean, all of a sudden you don't get shocked by something. But I don't think once somebody does something, some X and O idea, all of a sudden that's the answer. And we've kind of been saying that for 3 years now. There is no answer. You've got to play well. You've got to execute. It's less about figuring somebody out. So I do think if you're looking for your headline here, I do think that people who make those statements are kind of, whistling in the graveyard just a little bit. It doesn't have any meaning. I've said that before. Anybody that knows X's and O's would just kind of roll their eyes when they hear something like that.
Yeah. The critics of Lamar Jackson, we've seen it all. He's one-dimensional. He can't do this. He can't do that. And he just keeps proving people wrong, as do the Ravens. What was it last week? Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell. The old dudes. It was the recycled running backs who scored for the Ravens. Pretty impressive. But yes, Baltimore, M&T Bank Stadium, hosting the Bengals. A huge divisional battle, and it will be on CBS. It's After Hours on CBS Sports Radio. As for the Miami Dolphins, fresh off their trip to London, the only team playing in London this year that did not take the bye after their trip across the pond. And so Miami is hosting Atlanta, and that's coming up at the early round of games on Sunday. Tua Tagovailoa did return last week. He had the bruised ribs, but Brian Flores happy with what he saw from his young QB.
Responded well. I mean, he's really into the preparation for this week. He was in yesterday, working out, kind of getting started on his prep. Same thing this morning. He's in early, going through some of the early down stuff, the run game, the play action game, the drop back game. So understanding, kind of how they want to play defensively. He was asking a lot of questions like he always does, and going through his preparation. I think this is one of those things where every week you just get a little bit better each day, each week, hopefully. And but he's a tough kid. He's gonna. I'm sure he's there is some discomfort, but in his mind he's good to go. So he's not going to complain about anything.
The ribs are sore, but I'm just glad I got to get out there.
Not going to complain at all.
Play with the guys. Obviously, it wasn't the outcome that we wanted, but, thank the good Lord above that we have another opportunity to play this week as well. I would say we got a good group of guys. There's really no negativity, in the locker room. Guys are picking each other up, but, that I think that's what this league is all about. It's, you're going to make mistakes, but it's how you learn from it, and, we all have an opportunity for that.
Do you think in Tua's preparation, by the way, we set him up that way. That was kind of, he's not going to complain. Well, the ribs are a little sore. That wasn't complaining. It was just funny the way that we racked it. So do you think Tua has heard in the midst of all his preparation that the talks have intensified between the Dolphins and the Texans to trade for Deshaun Watson? Now, that's according to our friend John McClain at the Houston Chronicle. He's the one who put that report out there on Wednesday, and now we are 12 days away from the NFL trade deadline, which means if it's going to happen, it's going to happen soon. And so Tua, whether he knows it or doesn't, could potentially be on the move. We'll see if they actually get it done this time. It's been rumored for quite a while, but according to McClain, the talks are intense now between Dolphins and Texans. One of the intriguing matchups coming up this weekend is Jared Goff facing his former team, the Rams, for the first time since the trade. Oh, there are going to be so many cameras on him and Sean McVay when they get to midfield or wherever it is that they first meet during pregame. And you remember, Sean McVay just admitted earlier this week that he wishes he had communicated with Goff more clearly and had done a better job talking to him before the trade.
It takes a man to say something like that, and so yeah, I appreciate it. It still happened the way it did, but I do appreciate him saying that and got all the respect in the world for them over there. I don't think it nearly eroded the way people thought, and I think that was part of the confusion at the end. I don't feel like it really eroded that way. It was done the way it was, and reliving all that is to me irrelevant. I kind of just hit it there for a second. I don't think it was nearly as bad as people may think.
Interesting, his choice of verb there, erode, which of course means that it was coming apart, that the relationship or the foundation under the relationship was in fact getting washed away little by little. If you're thinking about water and erosion, he didn't say unfolded the way that people thought. He said it didn't erode. quite the way that people thought. But we do know for sure he never heard from McVay from the end of the season until he found out that he was getting traded to Detroit. Ultimately, he wants a win. And that's something else that Jared Goff communicated. They're the last winless team in the NFL. So we'll hear more from Jared on our Thursday night show. But ultimately, he wants to focus on winning, though he does have to deal with the likes of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. One more, and this is a bye team, a bye week. Dak Prescott needing the extra time potentially to recover from that calf injury. That's what Jerry Jones told our Dallas affiliate 105.7 The Fan. Oh, 105.3 The Fan. Sorry.
I think the fact that the bye is there, my feeling is that ought to take care of it in terms of enough time for it to get to where he can really compete normally. So I think I would be probably a little concerned if we were playing this week, but the fact we've got two, I'm in good shape yet.
Please forgive me, Dallas affiliate. It's we have a lot of 105s. We have a lot of numbers around the country with our, 300-something affiliates, so I apologize. You are special to me in Dallas. 105.3 The Fan, Sean and RJ, weekly catch-up with the owner and general manager of the Dallas Cowboys, and that's Jerry Jones, but they're off this week, so it is a crazy tough week if you're a fantasy football player, if you fancy yourself as a competitor in your fantasy league, because there are so many teams on bye. I was telling the audience and telling producer James earlier, I had to find a replacement for Josh Allen. I just forgot that I was going to have to find a replacement for Josh Allen. And so my choices were this. Case Keenum wasn't even listed as a choice. Not that I would have picked him up. But Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, and who was the other one? Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, and Carson Wentz. I ultimately went with Carson. I don't love it. They're playing the Colts are playing the Niners, but ultimately that was the quarterback I went with as my guy to spell Josh Allen. But yeah, no Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb is obviously out. Najee Harris is on bye as well. Adam Thielen, who's one of my top receivers, is on bye. I'm just going to accept that this week in fantasy I scored 25 points. It's just. The only reason I won last week is because my opponent started Daniel Jones at quarterback. So if I could just play that woman again, that general manager again, it's going to be, I'm not going to look. I'm just going to leave the team to do its own thing. We're back tonight after baseball and football, after hours with Amy Lawrence, CBS Sports Radio. Boom!
New this week on Curiosity Stream. In the last 100 years, half the world's monarchies have lost their thrones. Dig deep into real royal stories to see the shocking truth.
It's fair to say that it plunged the royal family into chaos.
And how it's good to be king until it's not on Royals Keeping the Crown. And follow one filmmaker's quest to reveal the poetry in your pint glass on Beer, a Love Story. It's all on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are just $20. That's $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com now.
Hey, I'm Peter Bukowski, host of the Locked On Today podcast. Trying to stay on top of every big story in sports is a full-time job. I know, because it is my full-time job. But it's not yours. That's why we have a network of local experts ready to give you the inside scoop on everything you truly need to know in the sports world. And we do it every day to make sure you're always caught up on the latest and greatest in sports. Listen to the Locked On Today podcast every day on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts.
Band of Mothers podcast, the new hilarious and binge-worthy show that every mom is talking about, is bringing you something extra creepy this Halloween.
And I said, "Oh, who is Eva?" And he said, "She's my friend with pink teeth and red blood, and I just see her when it's dark." And I panicked a little bit because our neighbor let me know that a child died there.
Does your kid see dead people? Download this week's episode for more spooky stories.